Welcome class to your Chapter 9 lecture video, Collecting Data with Forms. Inside of Chapter 9 we're going to plan and create a form, edit and format a form, work with different form objects, and test and process a form. We're going to begin on page 9-5 where they show figure 1, a sketch of the form you will add to the feedback page. So this is the form that we're going to create throughout Chapter 9 through Striped Umbrella. And this is kind of what you want to do when you're working with Coffee Shop. You want to sketch out on a piece of paper exactly what form information you want to create. And we'll talk about the different form objects you can use as we continue through this lecture video. So page 9-8, insert a form. So we're going to work with the data file 9_1, and we're going to save this as our feedback page inside of Striped Umbrella. If you get this error, just go ahead and click on OK. And then update links is always no. So when you're all done, you should get it formatted just like it is for the rest of the Striped Umbrella site. So we're going to insert a form on this page. So using the Insert panel, the next category that we're going to use, and the category we've been always using, is HTML. So we're going to have to change this to Form to work with inserting a form as well as working with inserting the form controls that we'll be working with. So let's go ahead and insert a form. You should notice that you get a red dashed outline, and this is just to note to you on InDesign view that this is where the form is. If I want to change form properties, I click on the border. It most likely will turn to this black depending on which color scheme you're using, and then I can use the Properties Inspector to update my properties. You can also always use your tag selector down here. So if I'm here and I want to click on my form, I can go ahead and just click Form here, and that will select the form as well. So setting form properties, let's go ahead and open up my Properties Inspector. And let's go ahead and add the properties that are noted on page 9. So we're going to give this form the ID of feedback. We're going to make sure that the method here is post for now. I'm going to show you an option at the end of this video where we would change this to get. So temporarily, we are going to leave this action property empty until I show you a different way that you can do it about it at the end of the chapter. Lesson 2 is about editing and formatting a form. So how are we going to lay out our columns in our form? Are we going to have our labels here and our labels on the left side, and then our form controls on the right side? And that's what the next pages are going to demonstrate, is that we're going to use a table to lay out our form. And again, that form that was designed for us on page 9-5. So we're going to have first name, last name, all of those labels. And labels are kind of the directions we're giving our users as to what information we want to be filled out in the form. And then the form actual controls or fields are going to be on the right column. Okay? So let's go ahead and click on and insert a table. So we got to go back to our HTML category on the Insert tab, and then click on Table. And here you want to fill out just the information that's depicted in figure 9. So we've got 10 rows, 2 columns, no table width, no border thickness, and you want to set the header to be top. Now what that's going to do with the header of top is it's going to bold the very first row of information that we have. So go ahead and click on OK, and there is our table. Now I'm going to kind of modify the directions a little bit from here on out as to how we're going to insert these form controls. I'm going to do the exact steps that you see on page 13, but I might modify them a little later in the video. So just so that you're aware of that as a heads up. Number 4 on page 12, before I go on, it says the table is currently formatted with the table rule in the SU styles that you defined earlier for the cafe page. This rule specifies the table width, and the table width is 80%. We're going to go ahead and merge the first 2 cells using our Properties Inspector, and then we'll go ahead and type in the information Okay, so you might put a little bit of directions at the top of your form as well. The reason, again, it's bolded and centered is because when we inserted the table, we used that top header formatting. Number 2, on page 13, place the insertion point in the first cell in the 5th row. Okay, so we have to go down. So we got 1 row, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you just want to make sure you have 3 blank rows in between. And then we're going to type in just some content. So those are some labels that we'll see connected to some form controls later on. Adding form labels using the label button, that's page 14. It says verify that the insertion point is in the cell below the one that contains the text I learned about you from. So cell below. Select the form category on the insert panel. And then we want to scroll to the very bottom and we want to click on label. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to type in comments. So I'm going to go to code view so that you can actually see that label tag and type in comments. And we'll come back to split view and we can see that comments is there. Now if this wasn't there, you can go ahead and you should see a refresh button on your properties inspector. Create a rule for the form table is page 15. So we're going to create a new global tag selector in the SU styles that modifies the TD tag. Now the TD tag is what holds these cells. So any cell we have is defined by a TD tag. So let's go ahead and open our CSS Designers panel. And then we'll go click on SU styles, global, and we'll add TD. Okay, we're going to go to our text category and we're going to vertically align. Oh, that's vertical. Yeah, that's right. Vertical align top. So the text in each cell is now going to be aligned at the top of the cell, which will be more apparent as you add longer text labels and larger text fields to some of the table cells. Okay, lesson 3, working with form objects. So in this one, I'm going to take you to the PowerPoint just so I can go over some of these form objects. So text fields. These are the most common type of form object. This is where you allow your visitor to actually type into that field. They're usually 1 row long. We'll talk about comments a little bit later, but that's typically what a text field is. Checkboxes allow us to create a list of options from which our user can select. So this is a multiple selection area, not like a yes or no type of response. So checkboxes multiple. Radio buttons is going to be one option or the other. And so radio buttons, a list of options, only one can be selected. A group of radio buttons is called a radio group. Each radio group you create allows one selection from within that group. A menu or a list on a form using the select button and the insert panel. So I call these my drop down menu options. They're where you'll be able to click on a little arrow and they drop down and you can select an option. Use these menus when you want a single option from a list of choices. You use lists. Okay, so there's menus and lists. Use a menu when you want single option for your visitors and lists when you want them to be able to select more than one option. Hidden fields make it possible to provide information to the web server, so to the script that's actually processing the form without our visitor having to know that information. It's not a way to hide information from our visitors, necessarily like malicious things, but just to send some information along that needs to be sent to the server for processing. An image field allows us to use an image field button on the insert panel. Use image fields to create buttons that contain custom graphics. If you want users to upload files to your web server, you can use an insert file field button. All forms, this is key, All forms must include a submit button, which users click to transfer the form data to the web server. And then we have a reset button that allows them to clear their data and maybe start over from scratch. So those are all the different form objects that we're going to be working on in the next coming pages, 19 through I think like 20, I don't know, 29. So like the next 11 pages that we'll be working with. So again, I'm going to modify the directions a little bit as we go through this. I've noted this on the assignments page, and I want you to continue to use that same practice as you work through Blooms and work through TripSmart. So it says place the insertion point in the first cell under the header and then type first name. I am not going to do that step, so step number 1 I'm going to do a little bit differently. I'm going to come to my second cell and I'm going to insert a text field. And I'm going to see that I have text field right here. That is my label. So instead of putting it in here, I'm going to put it right here. So I'm going to type in first name. Okay, and eventually I'm going to move that to the first cell. So here I'm going to select my field. I'm going to go to my properties inspector, and I'm going to type in first underscore name for its name. I'm going to give it a size of 40, and the max length that they can type in that field is 100. Now if I wanted a default value, I could put it right here inside that value box, and it'd be kind of like placeholder text and when they visit that form. So now I'm going to go to code view, and I'm going to move that label. So in the start of that second, so if I click here, here is the label. So a label to closing label. Before I even do that, I'm going to take out the non-breaking space, or the space that's in the first cell, and I'm going to highlight label, and if I just hover right here and hold down my left mouse button, I can drag and drop it. Here, I'm going to try it again. Drag, so you can see that little move icon, and drag and drop it into there. So it's a label that's connected, so it says for first name, and then here's name first name. So these two match, and it just knows for accessibility reasons that this label corresponds to this text box. So if this page were read to someone with a screen reader, they would know that this input box has to do with that particular label. So I'm going to go up here and click on, and I get my my label in the correct spot. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat this. Same step, second cell, click on text. And this time I think I'm going to just go ahead and put in all the field information, 40 and 100. And then I'm going to go ahead and change this to be, oh, did I take out too much? Yeah. Last name. Come here, take out the non-breaking space. I think I lost my label tag. Okay, so let me go ahead and back up. Sometimes I get a little crazy. So maybe it's easier for me to do it this way. I come in here and put in last name. Take out that non-breaking space and just simply move label into that cell. So when I review it, I see that the label is within the first cell and the control or the input field is within the second cell. If I click up here, it's updated. So you want to kind of continue that same practice as you're developing your fields for Blooms, TripSmart, and of course for Coffee Shop. So let's go ahead and create another one called email. So I'm going to go ahead and do text field, and I'm going to do my properties. So the name of my field is email, and same properties, we're going to go with 40 and 100. And then come down here and adjust my label to be email. Take out my non-breaking space, move label to closing label right into there, and it's updated. Okay, so that is text fields, okay, and associating the labels with their corresponding control. Page 21, insert a multiple line text field. Okay, so this is like your comment box where you have multiple lines to be able to fill in that information. So it says place the insertion point in the cell to the right of the comments label. So right here. And then we're going to choose text area. So text field for a single line. We're going to go to text area. Let's see if I can find it. Sometimes I know it's here. Just not seeing it. Text area, where are you at? There it is, text area. So I'm going to click on text area. And then I'm going to adjust my properties on my property inspector. And the name of this is comments. This is the size, the rows and the columns. So we're going to do 4 rows, and how wide the box is going to be 40 columns. And again, I could put placeholder text in here. Okay, so now I have a label that is above here, but my label is over here. So I got to do a little bit of configuring in the background. So I'm going to find comments, and here it says label, because that's the direction we did. I'm going to totally delete that. And I'm going to take, just like in the practice before, I'm going to take this label and I'm going to drop it up in here. So now when I come over here, I've got, and I need to change this text to say comments. Just like that. Okay, moving on to page 22. Insert a checkbox group. Okay, so place the insertion point in the empty table cell to the right. I'm interested in information about. Okay, so these ones are handled a little differently because the actual label is not I'm interested in information about. The actual label is what appears next to the checkbox. So this one we won't have to move anything. Just make sure that when you're going through any of these form directions that you're reading each instruction in great detail. Otherwise, if you hurry through them, you can get kind of confused as to what you're supposed to be doing. So make sure you read these very thoroughly. So checkbox group, and then we're going to give this checkbox group the name of brochures. And then here's the label. The label is going to be phishing. And the value is what is sent to the server for this form to be processed. So you'll notice that a lot of the times the value is going to be in all lowercase because that's programming and that's how they do things. We leave the formatting as line breaks. We don't want to use a table to format this particular set of checkboxes. So we'll go ahead and click OK. And now I have 2 checkboxes. And now you can see where that vertical alignment that we set in the designer's panel is working. It's pushing it to the top of the cell. It says select phishing checkbox, compare your screen to figure 21. So let's click on phishing and we'll compare it to figure 21. Okay. And if we look at the properties inspector, we can see it's brochures, the value is phishing because that's what we entered in that box. Now if I wanted phishing to be default checked, I would click this and it would have a default check mark. And that's not what we want for this form, but that might be something you'd want for your coffee shop form. Same thing with cruises. If I wanted that one to be default checked, I could check that. If these, it says number 8 on page 23, if your phishing and cruises checkboxes are not aligned at the top of their cells, so they appear on the same line as their labels, switch to code view and delete any paragraph tags. So that might happen to you, just remove paragraph tags. Page 24, add radio button groups to a form. So I would like to receive your newsletter is what we're working on next. So we're going to click on radio group button. And we're going to give this radio group the name of newsletters. And again, we have our labels and our values. So we have yes, and this is going to be a positive value, and we've got no and a negative value. And again, we're going to use line breaks to format this group. So we have yes and no. Now again, same thing with radio groups. If I want it to be default selected, I can go ahead and click on that checkbox. Don't use it to fool your visitors, but use it just to help them, you know, maybe forget to fill out a field. You can use it that way. And again, if you're finding the alignment is not right, look for those paragraph tags. Page 26. add a menu. So this is this one. I learned about you from. So a menu, again, a drop-down menu. You can see that selection list in figure 28 on page 27. So that's the one we're going to design next. So we're going to click on Select. And then we have to use our Properties Inspector to fill out the drop-down menu options. So I want you to click on List Values button. If you do not see your List Values button, click this corner arrow in your Properties Inspector to expand your Properties Inspector so that you can see everything. So go ahead and click on List Values, and then we're going to put in our label that our visitors would see and our value that would be sent to the server. So select from list, and then this is the value if they didn't select anything. Oh, internet. Okay, so we've got a list of 5 there. So we'll go ahead and click on OK. And now we have our list right here. Okay, so the next directions, very important. So it says number 10 on page 27, select the class list arrow. So we're going to format this with intro paragraph. So make sure that your selection list is first selected, and then we're going to format it with intro paragraph. And that's just to keep the same font that we have here in the form through the font in the selection list. Verify the select from list is displayed in the selected list box. So this one right here, selected, and we want to say select from list. So just make sure that that is highlighted, and then change the form to feedback. Okay, so just additional instructions on page 27. Page 28, insert a hidden field. Do not do this page. They are trying to set up some hidden fields that say that first name, last name, and email are required. Not a really good, effective way to specify that a field is required. It's kind of beyond the scope of this class to do required fields. If you're interested in setting up some required fields for your form for Coffee Shop, please let me know. I'll try to get you some JavaScript code to go about doing that. So do not do page 28. Page 29, add, submit, and reset buttons. I'm going to flip these a little bit. It says place the insertion point in the second cell of the second to last row of the table, and then insert a submit button. Never insert your reset button to the right of your submit button, because users click quick and sometimes they can hit that wrong button because they're used to submit buttons being the far right. So I say do reset button first and then submit button. Okay, so that they don't accidentally hit the reset button and lose all their information in the form. Okay, lesson 4, test and process a form. So check spelling and create visual cues for required fields is what we're doing in this. So we're first going to add just a little bit of an asterisk to first name, not a little bit of an asterisk, we're adding an asterisk, and then to email. Okay, common way to note that those are required fields. We're going to merge these last 2 cells, and we're just going to put in required fields. Now, when you're designing one for Coffee Shop, if you want to make this a red, go ahead and create a class and add that so that they know that that is required. We're going to format our buttons a little bit on page 31. So we go to reset, and we're going to give them the feature item class, and same thing with submit. So we got a little bit of italicizing added to those. Number 6 on page 31, change to code view and then delete the label select above the list menu. So this right here, we want to delete this out of there. I want you to take I learned about you from. I want you to cut that. I want you to copy it over select. And then I want you to move this label just like we did before. So I learned about you from for select matches up with name select. Link a file. So now we're going to link. So let's go ahead and save all on here. And we're going to open up the About Us page. So in the About Us page, we're going to create a link to feedback. So between, I should say, enter a paragraph break after beachwear. So let me go ahead and move this, and we're going to type in, please give us and then we'll make feedback. Oh, I supposed to spell it right. Feedback. We're going to link that to our feedback page. Oh, what happened there? Feedback. Okay, Properties Inspector, what are you doing? Being slow. Okay, go ahead and click OK. And so now when they click on feedback and go directly to that file. So let's go ahead and save this. And then it says test the form by filling it out. So we're going to go ahead and test it. I'm going to open it up in a web browser. So we'll click on feedback. Okay. And then we'll fill in our information. And then we're going to click select from list from a friend, and then please send me more information on fishing in your area. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click on submit. Okay, and you're going to get this. Okay, especially if you do it through the preview app. So you get two ways that you can go about submitting this information. If you do not put anything in the action field for your feedback form, you're not going to get it to be sent anywhere. So I don't care if you do this for Striper Umbrella, Blooms, or TripSmart, but I do want you to do this for Coffee Shop. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my form, and I'm going to change my action. So I can do mail to : and then I can put in my email address. And then I'm going to change my encryption type here to multi-part form data. This is only if my action is an email. Okay? Otherwise, I'm going to go back to default. And what I've done is I've uploaded a file to your doc sharing tab. And it's called Form Processor. Okay, so this one right here, Form Processor. You must change the method from post to get to use Form Processor. So let me show you Form Processor. Let me go ahead and download it. Okay, so this is kind of the format that you'll see. Let me go ahead and open up my downloads. Form Processor. I'm going to copy that to get this window shrunk here so you guys can see what I'm doing. To my Striped Umbrella site. Paste it. So there's my form processor. Now I'm going to put in my action here. I'm going to change to method to get. It will not work with post. So if you use this file and it's not working, make sure your method has been changed to get. So I'm going to navigate, find form processor, and click OK. I'm going to save. Let's go back to the browser and test this. Fill in my information again. Okay, for some reason it wants to download it like that. So let's go ahead and try it this way. Let's try feedback here. I'm going to see if I can get it to work. There. Okay, so lesson learned on that. You cannot do the live app preview. You need to open up your browser window, Control O or File Open. Okay, so Control O is probably the best way. Open up the feedback form and then test it out that way so that it doesn't say that live app preview type of stuff, the information there. If you're going to use form processor, okay, just make sure form processor and get. Now, I say to myself, I want to have this as the same formatting as the rest of my site. So simple, very simple to do. I open up form processor. I use just code view. Close some of these out here. I go to the body section. I copy everything that's in the body section. So in this case, lines 11 through 25, I copy it. I go to the feedback page and everything in the body section. You can do this for any page. It doesn't have to be feedback. Maybe index would have been a better solution. I shouldn't say everything in body. I should say everything that's this right here. So let's do everything below nav. Okay, so from nav to the top of your footer. So basically your page content. And maybe you want to leave your contact information there. So I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to paste that script in there. And I'm going to go File, Save As, and this is key. File, Save As. Do not do Save, because if you do Save, you're going to lose your feedback form. Okay? Save As. I'm going to save it over my form processor file. Save. And then yes, overwrite it. Okay? Click Save on that. Come back here. Fill out my form. Now I'm getting lazy typing in things. It's just testing. And click on Submit. So now I have the same layout and I've just given my information back to my visitor if this is what they entered in. Okay. If you don't want the Submit button information there, simple. You can go ahead and go back to your feedback form and where it is the Submit button, you can remove, where's the Submit button? Right here. Remove, I believe you remove the name. Okay, so go ahead and remove the name if you don't want that coming through. Okay, so that is Striped Umbrella, and that is how you can make your forms functional. So you either make a choice. You make it either mail to : and your email address, and make sure you change the encryption type to multi-part form, or you can use this form processor file. You're not required to put it in your layout, but it just looks better. Okay. So if you have any questions on that, please let me know. Now I just want to show you the modified directions that are posted for Chapter 9. So in the sections Edit and Format a Form and Work with Form Objects, you're going to do the same thing that I just demonstrated in this video. You're going to put the text control, or not the text control, the form control in the right column, and then you're going to do that move over to the first column with the label. Okay. So the directions are all there. If you have any questions, make sure you create a nice functional form for a coffee shop. Okay. Make it meaningful as to what information you'd want to get back from your visitors. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.